Select Quick 3D. Now that you have it on Quick 3D, you have to use these main buttons, the yes and the no and the up, down, enter. And you want to set up all of your collection data. So that's where you're going to start. Make note of that file name at the top left corner of the screen, so you know later on that you are on grid 6. And that helps with your data transfer. Otherwise, you are unnecessarily transferring data. This thing's a total pain in the butt. So you want to use the up or down arrow so you can select what area you want to deal with. If we select collect, we go down to radar. This is just making sure that you have it set up to the right mode. We are using a 400 megahertz antenna, and it shows that we're using 400 megahertz. So we're good to go on that. You can hit no and it'll collapse that selection. 3D grid, this is where you're actually setting up the area that you're going to collect. Ordinarily you do a 10 by 10 grid. It just makes it a little bit easier, but you can do it to any shape that you want. When we're at the cemetery, we want to be able to go perpendicular, so we're doing long collections. If you draw a map, it usually helps you figure out where your corners are. So we are going to be moving along the x-axis. So x is starting at 0, we're going to 18. If you want to change that number, you hit the enter button on top of it, and it'll pull up this new little screen, and you use your up or your down arrows to change that number. Once you have it to the number that you want, you hit yes. And then you go down to where you want to end. We want to end at 18, so we'll leave that there. Y, we want to start at 0, and we're only going to 3 meters. The most important thing here is whether or not you're doing spacing on your y-axis or your x-axis. We want to do the x-axis because we want to only do 6 collections. So your x is set at 50. Your antenna is 35 centimeters in width, so 50 is the best number to go with. But if you need to change that, you can hit enter, and you can make it less or more depending on how many passes you want to make. And then hit yes to accept it. Scan, this is pretty much set up the way that you need it. You don't want to fool around with this too much. The only thing that you would change is your dielectric constant, and that is due to the type of soil you're dealing with. Okay. Gain, make sure it's always on auto. If you try to select your gain when you are in the field, it's going to be very difficult to process the data later. Same for position, leave it on auto. Once you have everything set up, you hit the button down here that says run setup, and this will show you how your collection is going to look. So if you look at the left hand corner, it tells you where you're starting, which is at 0, 0. And it shows you that you are collecting in the right direction. For this first pass, normally you have a rope, but we're staying along this side, so we're going to go ahead and just collect it.
Okay.
To start collection, you always want to make sure that you are where you think you are, which is at 0. On the y-axis means you're at 0 because you haven't moved this way yet. And to start your first line, you hit the button run stop. Wait until it beeps. I think it's usually twice. So we'll give it a second. Sometimes it doesn't always start. And if you push it a little bit, there it goes. You heard that second beep.
Okay. So you got to go to the big G in the corner.
Okay, Mr. G. It is automatically going to open up whatever file is on your computer that's called Radeon 7. But if you loaded it onto a thumb drive, you have to select it. So it's not that hard to find. Make sure it's the right file. And you want to open the big G file on the bottom that says Radeon Project Files. The other files that appear above it with the numbers, those correspond to each pass that you made with the GPR. So if you ever have to assemble your own data because some crazy stuff happens, you need to know that. So just double click on it. I need to focus it. So this is raw data. This is your first pass. If you change the button on the lower left hand corner, it says L001, that's your first line. You can look at your second line, third, fourth, fifth, and to infinity and beyond. What you want to do is process your data. You can use the data processing stuff that Radeon has on the program files. It is fairly easy to use. If you click on easy processing, that's one way of doing it. Or if you stay at home, you can hit the button that says process files and it should open a little window on the left. And then you can just go through the ones that you want to use. I usually just stick with easy processing just to quickly get through it and cut out some of that noise, and also to elevate the ground. Otherwise, all your depths are going to be way off. So step 1, time 0, that's cutting off this chunk here, that there is this distance between how long it took for the antenna to shoot the signal and it to return. If you hit apply, you must also hit OK, so it actually does it on all of your lines, not just 1 or 2 of them. And then you'll notice now that your 0 is actually at 0.
Mm-hmm. Science.
And then background removal. If you notice that your parabolas have this sort of extra noise behind it, and then below it, it has echoes, background removal will try to clear out some of that. I just hit apply and OK. Step 3 is test apply filters. We're not using filters, so we can skip it. And then migration. For this one, we're not going to use. That works better if you collected data in unidirectional way. And we did, no, not unidirectional, bidirectional. We used unidirectional, so I don't think it's necessary. So that's just a little bit of processing to give you a cleaner version of your data. So when you're done with that, you can unclick the process files. It saves you a little room. Scoot that over there. And then you can click on 3D view, and this gives you your plan map pretty much. And you can use the cursor to get a better idea of where everything is at.